Shalom Israel, this is Brother Nalah with another edition of Nalah's Chamber. To get right into it, as everyone knows, we're in the middle of this so-called Covid-19, aka coronavirus pandemic, and everyone is under quarantine. A good chunk of the world is United States and Spain, Italy, China, of course, and many other countries, Japan, and go on and on. The world is under this watch of this pandemic. There was a time when I didn't even believe that the pandemic was a real physical disease. I thought it could have been made up. I didn't have any solid opinion, solid meaning sturdy, absolute opinion of it, because you can go anywhere with this. But as of right now, I mean, it can change, but as of right now, I do believe it's actually a real physical virus that is plaguing the earth right now, and of course plaguing the United States. I actually have a blood relative, a cousin, that has COVID-19, aka the coronavirus, and who is on a respirator, has been on a respirator, but just yesterday he got taken off the respirator. So, thank the Most High for that. But, when you have it that close to home, where it's a family member that actually contracted the virus, it makes you reanalyze it. There are two things happening simultaneously, just as the nature of things. You have a physical, things are happening in the physical, and things are happening in the spiritual. The physical is a manifestation of the spiritual. The spiritual obviously is on a higher plane, and things from the spiritual manifest in the physical. If you want to use an analogy, it's like a video game is a lower plane, but there are things that appear to be happening physically in a video game, especially with the technology we have now with these Xboxes and PlayStations and whatever video game consoles you have. It looks almost physically real, but obviously it's man-made, physically human-made, and when you play it, you're physically manipulating a sort of virtual reality, and then we're the higher level of that in this physical reality, and then there's a spiritual reality. So in the spiritual reality, this plague was allowed to happen, whether it be a natural plague that the Most High just allowed to manifest and the earth is dealing with it, or this is a man-made plague manipulating the earth and for higher purposes, evil purposes. Either way, no matter which way you cut it, it's still a spiritual manifestation, a physical manifestation of something spiritual. If you go back to the turn of this century, everyone thought, especially in the Israelite community, that the year 2000 would be the end of the earth, but that proved, not to be the case. But what it did do, what was real, was that the year 2000 marked a new phase. We went over to this so-called Roman calendar's new century, and things did go into a different sort of age or movement. The first year out, September 2001, we had the 9/11. So September 11th manifested. I would say it changed the movement of the world's thought process, because before September 11th, as far as America is concerned and the United States is concerned, people really believed in the American dream As far as Black Americans, they really believed in the Martin Luther King dream, that in this new century, we'll be progressing into a true United States that is equal for all people, especially coming out of the Bill Clinton era in his administration. But when September 11th happened, what it did was wake people up to believe that this country is more than meets the eye, and it is not as apple pie and sweet and all fair as you may believe. Not that people didn't believe that before, but the average person, especially the average Jake and Eve, it shook people up to dig deeper into conspiracies and government things. Of course, Fahrenheit 9/11, the movie, being one of the main things that come out of that fairly quickly. And of course, the brothers in the Hebrew Israelite movement were right on top of that. As a matter of fact, the first time I discovered or rediscovered the Israelites, because I really discovered them at 7 years old, but the first time as an adult rediscovering the Israelites was around September 11th, shortly after, maybe a couple of weeks after, on community access television, Brooklyn community access television called BCAT. The first time I saw Zabak, Priest Zabak, and he had a newspaper on. He had a newspaper within it was a half an hour show on Brooklyn public access television, and he had the newspaper up, and it had all the cops that perished in this World Trade Center, and he had "Gotcha" written across it, and that was like very eye-opening, because at that time I was like, everybody was in a kind of a state of mourning in the New York City, so to have this opposite opinion was like startling. So I remember that was the first time I saw House of Israel, was around the end of September of 2001 is when I discovered House of Israel. But ironically, it was through some sort of judgment, the September 11th judgment happening. And around that time, the camps I saw the camp physically in Times Square. I believe it was in front of the Virgin Megastore, maybe a month or two, maybe sometime in October 2001, November. And it's like 40-50 man camp, because when that judgment happens, the camps, people start cleaving onto this word more. And I remember the camp being huge at that time. One of the biggest camps even to this date was around the September 11th camps. So to fast forward a little bit, you had the next really big calamity was Hurricane Katrina, where you had the Most High inflict judgment on New Orleans. When you think about it, the Most High, not that he doesn't inflict judgment on all the tribes, but I would say Levi and Judah probably get it the harshest. It's like if you want to think about it in the terms of something physical or carnalish, like having a belt, and he got a special belt for Levi, he got a special belt for Judah. He got 12 belts for 12 different styles of butt whooping. But Levi, being that a lot of Levite heritage is in New Orleans, he made sure that judgment came real harsh on them. And I remember, flooding them out. It was like a 1-2 punch. The hurricane came, and they withstood the physical hurricane, and then the flooding is what really did them in. And of course, whatever government sabotage, blowing the levees or whatever, we can get far into that, but it was a judgment nonetheless. And the camps were big again. So I remember that around the 2005 camps at Times Square, it swelled up again. It kind of was big in September 11th. It kind of shrunk down a little bit, and then it got big again, where you see 20, 30 man camps around 2005. So now we're here at the COVID-19 coronavirus era, Well, I would say this is even bigger than September 11th and Hurricane Katrina, because those two events, September 11th and Hurricane Katrina, they were things that happened in one day. I mean, the impact was one day, and then you had to go with the aftermath. So September 11th happened around 8 in the morning. It started, and by 10:30, 10:45, it was over, and you had to have the aftermath. So it was just a morning that it happened. By the afternoon, it was all over. You just have to deal with the aftermath. Hurricane Katrina, the same thing. It lasted through the night, a hurricane. The next day, all the flooding came in, and the event itself was over, but you had to deal with the aftermath. Where this is different, well, this is ongoing. This is constantly, it's like it's constantly in bloom. Like this thing can be passed around and come in waves. So it's a sustained thing. So it has everybody pretty much on edge, because you don't know which way it's going to go. It has people anxious. I think that this all these things, all these calamities, if you want to get to the nitty-gritty and to the target, are warnings from the Most High directly at Israel to get together. It's definitely judgment on the earth, because the Most High does it in layers. It serves many purposes, but the ultimate purpose is to wake up Israel. He's giving you these moments of calamity to show you that this kingdom is going to fall, and the real kingdom comes after this one, and not to get too attached to this kingdom, because in the one fell swoop he can destroy it. And this is extremely light stuff. This is extremely light. This is the most probably, and this is bad, because people are really getting sick for real. People are dying for real. Nobody can leave the house. You're under a mild form of martial law. So it's real in that sense. But this is the lighter version of what you can expect out of real calamities, real stuff where you won't even be able to turn on your TV. When you open the faucet, you won't even be able to get fresh water. When you go to the supermarket, they'll be all shut down. That's real calamity. Real calamity is when your food and water and shelter are compromised. When your food, water, and shelter are compromised, on top of that, then your public safety will be compromised. That means you're all in all-out anarchy. And we're not even at that stage yet. We're in a strong dilemma. To give you another example of how the Most High can manifest a judgment, if you watch the movie, or it's not even, it's a movie, of course, Titanic, but it's a real event. If you study Titanic and, of course, watch the movie, that was a very direct judgment from the Most High, because the Titanic happened in the early 1900s. I can't remember. I'm thinking 1912 or somewhere around there. The early 1900s, the second decade of the 1900s. This is only a few decades after slavery. So those wealthy people on the Titanic were the children of people that financed the slave trade and got rich off the slave trade. There were different classes on the Titanic. You had the first class, and you had the second class, and you had the bottom class. But it was basically meant for the upper class, though. So it was a luxury liner. So this luxury liner, they were benefiting off. They were rich. That the ship was built off the backs of slave money from the English. The English, especially during that time, towards the end of the slave trade, they're the ones that were making the most money. The British were transporting slaves through the Caribbean and the United States. on their vessels. So the Most High had it to where the children of those people that got rich off of it died in the most horrific ship vessel accident in history, where you're in the middle of the ice cold Atlantic Ocean, you hit an iceberg, and this ship sank in the ice cold waters. And these are all people that were children of people that benefited from the slave trade. So to show you how specific the Most High can target something and make it an example and make mockery on at the same time. You have it also, to go back to Katrina and September 11th, every time a calamity like this happens, there's some sort of implementation. So after 9/11, you had amongst other things, amongst the war that led after the Second Gulf War with the shock and awe and toppling Saddam Hussein and all that stuff. But as far as the homeland, on the home front, you had the Homeland Security was created from that. So they're always going to use that to implement something. As far as Hurricane Katrina, you had the FEMA. So you had two government agencies created after this calamity. So I'm almost positive that after this incident, after this whole thing calms down, there's going to be some sort of implementation of some new department. And these are just theories. It could be something financial because we're still in the middle of it. We don't know what the financial fallout. It's going to be some financial fallout because everything, all the economy has basically frozen. So there's going to be massive economic fallout, and then there's going to be what you would call it, immigration fallout, because now they can further filter out and further create laws that decide who gets into this country and who doesn't. And the best way to do that is to scare the whole world half to death. So now when you implement these laws, everybody's for it because they don't, everybody was terrified. You took away two things, their health and their money. So this disease is hitting you health-wise, where you have to be mindful of your health. Also, the third one, your freedom. In this soft martial law, your freedom is taken away from you, and also your money is being froze. So you're basically held captive by this disease, which in turn created the government to make you a hostage in your own home, and gave, in turn, putting it wrapping it up in this package where they're doing it for your own good. So when they release you, now here's the cure. They're going to say, well, this is implemented now. This is implemented now. This financial thing is implemented now. This immigration thing is implemented now, where you're going to be all for it. So that is I believe the main rabbit out of the hat is what things are implemented after this. As far as Israel, back to Israel again, this Passover will be probably the first one since Israel has been awakened that the Passover is coming through calamity. So the Passover is not going to be celebrated normally, where all Israelites gather, from to and fro. This is going to be a home Passover. So it's going right back to the roots. So that is a sign from the Most High that we're getting close to the Judgment Day, where we're holding the Passover while people are dying, and to be inside from where you can escape death in the safety of your home under the cloak of the Spirit, which is a powerful thing in and of itself. A little couple of side notes. If you notice, when this system collapsed, a lot of things kind of die off. You don't hear anything about sodomites in the past decade or more, everything's been celebrating sodomy this, sodomy that, every 5 minutes. Now that's died down a lot because that sodomy comes out of a kingdom that had too much pleasure. So there's no pleasure in this kingdom right now. So the sodomite energy is kind of dead at this point in time. There's no way for them to party or revel. Whatever sodomite stuff they have to do is behind their closed doors, so they're not out in the open. And the same thing with 2/3 Jake. They can't be outside, so they can't blood and crip. In Chicago, they can't be going on these massive killing sprees of each other because everybody's inside. So if you see how when this kingdom is not in this celebratory free mode, a lot of the evilness gets curbed amongst with the quarantine some of the evil, the wickedness too. So that's a funny thought to really analyze, is that the quarantine is quarantine a lot of the wickedness. It's definitely once again to just end this quick commentary about the coronavirus. It is definitely a warning to Israel to repent, to come back from the Most High, because you're seeing a dress rehearsal of something that's going to be worse than your imagination. The Most High didn't prophesize, or he didn't let the word prophesize that we will be taken out by disease. That's just one of the many things that are going to occur. Famine, disease, pestilence. We have the locust invasion. So yeah, those things are going to be prelude, but it's going to be by nuclear fire is what this is going to bring this kingdom down. But this whole coronavirus, COVID-19 madness, along with the quarantine, is giving you a moment to reflect and say, look, I warned you, because once this quarantine is over, and eventually will be over, Jake and Eve are going to go right back to what they were doing, being a sodomite, being blooding and cripping, killing each other. Chicago going to go back to having their murders. New Orleans going to go out to, they have their little festivals and their little eating unclean foods and doing their voodoo, and on and on and on. But he gave you this moment to reflect, to get right. Like I said, every time these events happen, the camps swell up, the interest swell up. After September 11th, the camps got big, people were listening more. After Katrina, the camps got big, people listening more. And now you'll see this happen again. But the Most High is not going to give so many chances. So once again, you're seeing a dress rehearsal on a time when there's a nuclear missile that strikes this country, and you're not going to have any grocery. When you turn on your TV, it's not going to be a cable news network, CNN, and MSNBC and Fox News Network are not going to be giving you your information. You're not going to see them. They won't even exist. You're not going to have your Wi-Fi. You're going to be like Will Smith and I Am Legend. Those are two movies to watch back to back. Contagion. If you watch it, it'll scare you straight. You watch Contagion, and then you follow up Contagion by I Am Legend, you'll be scared straight. Because that's those two movies, a double feature, is almost prophetic. Even Denzel's movie, The Book of Eli, you could throw that one in there too. But once again, this is just a dress rehearsal. You haven't seen anything yet. Even after this is going to be some calamity, because the financial fallout is going to be crazy. And like I said, they can implement anything. More than likely, it's going to be some financial thing. They might even try to make that one world currency, new world order, things that could be, you can go on and on and on. It's a rabbit hole you can go down to see. We'll have to wait and see. We don't have to speculate, because we'll see before this year is over what they implement. You don't even have to conspiracy theory too much. You'll just see it happen, manifest within a couple of months. So with that said, once again, use this quarantine time to stay in the scriptures, watch the videos while they're here, because when it really goes down, there's going to be no Wi-Fi, no internet, no television, no food, no nothing. So use this time to repent, get closer to the Most High, and live your life as if it was the last, because you never know when this kingdom will just fall, and those missiles will fly, and hopefully the chariots will fly, and you be in that elect number. So this has been another edition, another episode of Nalah's Chamber. May the Most High be with you all. Shalom.